Alright guys, it is Sunday morning here, the day after the second stop of the Bassmaster Elite Series on Lake Seminole, and this is my first day off the water in 18 days straight. So we have, it's been a mission. We've been in full fishing mode and we've had one of the best 2 weeks I've had for a very long time, or ever had, down here in Florida. We finished Okeechobee in 6th place, and we just wrapped up Seminole in 11th. I missed the top 10 cut by 3 ounces. So, not complaining. I'm super stoked. We're second in Angler of the Year right now. Life's good. Fishing's unbelievable. I've caught a bunch of huge bags all through this whole week in Okeechobee and Seminole. Big bass, 7-pounders, 6-pounders. My hands are tore up. The big fish marks are all across from the tops and backs of my hands. That's what you want to do when you're leaving Florida, and I haven't experienced that too often. But what we're talking about is the outfit and the baits that I have. I caught basically all of my big fish and most of the bag on the same rod, reel, lure, line outfit in Okeechobee and Seminole, like back to back, just a couple of different changes, and it was pretty cool to see the huge differences that made just these few little things that I figured out. It was all about the SwimJig. So caught nearly everything on a 1/2 ounce Molex GT SwimJig with a 5.5 inch X-Zone swammer on the back. And so we're going to go over the outfit, the rod, the reel, the line, the lure, how I set it up, how I glued it, all the details. So you can go out there and hopefully catch some yourself. Straight up, I'm going to tell you, the Miller Rod's Switch Freak. That is the rod that I used for the last 2 weeks. It's an unbelievable rod. I can guarantee you I can match this rod and reel setup against any rod and reel setup out there, and this is going to outperform them in every aspect, from the guys, the performance, the weight, the feel, everything. I love everything about these rods. Ian Miller, he's one of the best rod builders in the world, and if you're gonna look at a Miller rod and think about getting into one, the Switch Freak is the best one to get, because that's what we called it, the Switch Freak, because it does everything. 7'2", and it's about a medium heavy, and it handles, fluorocarbon braid, whatever kind of line you really want to put on there. It's great for skipping, but it's my favorite SwimJig rod. It still made long casts. It had tips so I could do those short, sharp twitches in and out of the grass, and then it had power down low to handle 6 and 7 pound bass. So that's the rod. It's got the custom skeleton grip here, so my hand is always touching the blank in behind there. It just feels unbelievable in the hand, and I matched it with the brand new Shimano Bantam. I've used every Shimano reel out there. I absolutely love all of my Shimanos. I've used every bait caster that they've had since I was 16 years old. This Bantam is the best bait caster I've ever used in my life. It casts further, it's smooth, it's powerful. I cannot say enough about this reel. It just feels like it's the highest quality possible, and it just handled everything that I put it through, hell and back, the last 2 weeks. Strong drag, and I used it in the 6.2 to 1, so I actually tried to slow myself down. I didn't want to be winding fast, and I wanted power to get those fish out of that heavy cover, those lily pads, the cattails, that vine stuff. I need power, winching power, and the 6.2 gear ratio does that. I loaded it straight through 50-pound Power Pro Super Slick V2 in Onyx black, and I just love that black line, but I also used this marker as it wore. I would just run the black marker up there and keep that braid nice and dark, so it stayed sort of invisible in that sort of tannin colored Florida water. So that's the outfit. Switch Freak Miller rod, 6.2 to 1 Shimano Bantam, 50-pound Power Pro Super Slick. I think that's the best SwimJig all-round bait cast outfit that you can buy, and it did 99% of the damage the last 2 weeks. This was the killer over the last 2 weeks. 2 different colors. I'm going to show you the Okeechobee one first. It was something super special about this bait. This is the Molix GT SwimJig. It was green pumpkin brown with a little bit of red flake in there. Super heavy weed guard. Front nose tie, so it just comes through everything, and a big, strong, stout hook. That's key for down here. Big gap, big, strong hook. The point doesn't line up with the eye, so you've got a nice big gap here. When they bite it, that hook's getting them. You've seen I just didn't lose fish. They all got it and way down the throat. This thing's just got absolute teeth marks all over it. And then I used the green pumpkin blue fleck, and this was the one that no one had. I had 4 of them, and they're just chewed to bits. This is just a couple laying on the ground. This is just absolutely mauled to pieces. And so 5-inch swammer just swam perfectly. It swam on the fall, and it swam on a slow roll, and it swam on a burn. And just the way this whole thing is set up, it just never got stuck. It hardly ever got anything back. I could throw it through that thick, heavy cover and slow roll it, and it would just come through everything. And the key change that I made was on day 2, Lake Okeechobee, I went from a 3/8 ounce to a 1/2 ounce. And that was the biggest difference in those big bags. I went from 12 pounds to 24 pounds. And the heavier weight, I was letting it sink into the holes. It was getting down deeper, getting in front of those fish. And when they were setting up and going to spawn or on a bed, they get territorial. Even when they don't have a bed, they just get aggressive. And so this big SwimJig, when it would swim down in there, those big females, they did not like it. And that's why they would bite it. The guys that were using the smaller, lightweight SwimJigs, the fish would just let it go over their head. So it wasn't actually getting to them, and when it was so small, they weren't bothered about it. When this big bait got around those big females, they would just get aggressive, and they would absolutely crush it. So that right there was the Okeechobee killer.
So why did you pick the swammer over that very typical Florida swim bait that everybody throws and has caught fish for so many years? Why would you pick the swammer?
So that's an interesting one, and an interesting one how it actually worked out is everyone knows the typical swim bait paddle tails that people use and buy down here in Okeechobee, and I did the same thing. And I actually bought some, I have some, I've used them. The typical baits, they work great, and when I got them in their packs, none of them swam. The tails were all bent and kinked, and you would get maybe one swim bait out of an entire pack that you paid good money for, and only get one, if you're lucky, one bait. You would have to boil them. And so I really got tired of it. I hadn't used the swammers in Florida. I've used them everywhere else. I have a lot of confidence in them. And I put it on, and it swum unbelievable. It made the SwimJig rock, which is a big deal. So the SwimJig is rocking. That tail is moving. If that bait's moving, the tail's moving. And when I actually finally did it, I just started getting way more bites. I got way more bites on the fall, which is a big deal because a lot of those other swim baits don't swim when they fall. Watch that. A 1/2 ounce will actually pull it a little bit harder and make it thump even more, which is another reason I went to 1/2 ounce. And then the X-Zone Swammer in 5.5 comes individually packed like this, and each swim bait has its own little clamshell, so every single bait swims. And I just think that's a big deal. If you're paying money, your hard-earned money, for 4 baits, they better all swim, and they're guaranteed to with the X-Zone. So that was really how it happened. On practice, right through, I was using other swim baits, and then on the final day of practice, I actually went to the swammer, and that's when I started getting the bites and started getting the bigger baits, and it all turned into it. Now I've really found my ultimate, unbelievable SwimJig setup that I absolutely love. The crazy part about it all is we shifted 7 hours north, came to Seminole, and the exact same technique played, just in a different color. I don't know how this happened, but I fished the green pumpkin, I fished all the other techniques, I caught fish punching, wacky rig, a little bit of flipping, I caught some on a frog. I saw some gizzard shad and some shad blowing up, and I saw fish blowing up, and I picked up the Molex GT in the crystal shad color, and I put the white chartreuse black back swammer on there, and they just started crushing it. And it was the same deal, half ounce. The crystal kind of look just wasn't pure white. It was just that perfect shad color. There was something about the chartreuse that they loved, and I literally got the hardest, most aggressive bass bites I've ever had in my life here on Seminole on this bait. Exact same rod and reel setup, Switch Freak, Bantam, and 50-pound Power Pro, and I went to work with this thing and just had 21 pounds day one, was sitting in second, and then dropped down to 20th, and then yesterday jumped back up, had another fish about 7 pounds in the morning, just absolutely crush it in that willow grass. Scott got everything on camera. He can show you some of this footage as we're talking here, and we're going to have the full YouTube series out soon, where you can see all of these fish catches. But that was the deal. At Seminole, it was just going. It wasn't a particular spot, it wasn't an area, it was making as many casts in water willow, lily pads, pad stems, cattails, dropping it in those holes again, and just fishing for feeding fish on the outside, spawning fish on the inside, fry garters. The SwimJig is just such a good all-round bait for covering those areas and getting it in and catching fish in all stages. So I think we've about covered it all. Molex GT SwimJig, one in green pumpkin, one in crystal shad, chewed to absolute bits, a 6th and 11th in Florida on the Elite Series, and sitting in second in Angler of the Year, thanks to those two bad boys there. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, leave them below, and we'll get back to you.